Hello, hello, and welcome. It's September 15th, 2024. I'm Eric Murphy. This is Skeptic Generation. Ooh, this is my cat, and we need to talk. Hey, everybody. I hope everyone's doing well. This is the first episode that Skepgen is simulcast on Twitch. I don't even have the graphics available for it. We're giving it a shot. I have been warned. I'm not sure whether or not this is going to work, but I'm really excited to give it a try, and so is my cat. Mwah! And as always, I will be taking calls. Oh, look at that. I've already got a caller. I'm so excited about that. I do have other things I want to talk about, so let me set the stage first. So obviously, I'm excited to be trying new things to get the show out there. I'm also going to be opening myself up to collaborations and doing stuff with people. I think it really started. I got reached out to. I hope this isn't supposed to be private, but I got reached out to by a pastor who knows of me and wants to do an atheism and LGBTQ kind of sit-in with Christian university students. And I was asked to go there, and I was like, look, I know I'm bi or pan, however you want to call it, pansexual. I know I'm poly, but I'm also pretty cis, while I've experienced a lot of racial stuff, I've flown under the radar for a lot of things for most of my life. And so I felt weird about it. And I started coming up with a syllabus of things that I might want to talk about. And I'd love to kind of run it by between calls and see what y'all think, because that is interesting to me. And then the other thing is, I also want to take a look at the live chat. I'm going to try and be watching the live chat because I want to pick your brains, you guys. I need more topics. I'm running out. What other things can I do episodes on? What is interesting to you that you'd love to see? Please, let me know. Think about it. Pop it in. Call it in. However you want to. I would love to take those notes so that I can do episodes based on what you want to see. Okay, so I'm back on my medication. Very, very grateful for that. Thank you for your patience, everybody, for sticking with me. I do have a little bit of housekeeping. I took a look at the outro, the credits, and I saw that the streaming program that I'm using has been pulling an old version of the credits. So if you have not seen your name pop up and you've become a patron, I sincerely apologize. I'm going to make sure that gets fixed as soon as possible. I'm surprised that it's taken a while to find out that was going on, but I'm going to make sure that the right one is up and it's all current and all of that good stuff. So thank you for your patience. That said, oh my goodness. Oh, I've got some really good return calls. Oh, I'm really excited about this. Okay, you know what? Let's not wait any longer. Let's start off and talk to Sunny in Indiana. Sunny, you're live.
Oh, Eric. Oh boy, do I have something fun to talk about today.
Oh my. All right, let me get your name in the lower third.
Sure.
Just so that, people can know who you are. Okay, yeah. So it says you want to talk about the Seven Mountains Mandate.
Mm-hmm. Are you familiar with this? And judging by your sigh, I'm going to assume yes.
The Seven Mountains Mandate, from what I remember, is it's kind of like the OG Project 2025, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah, that's a good way to describe it.
Yeah, it was a very deliberate Christian effort to kind of, well, why don't you tell me about it, actually? Because I'm just going off of memory. You know a lot more about it. Talk to me.
Yeah. So from what I understand, the Seven Mountains Mandate seeks to influence what they consider to be the seven, quote-unquote, mountains of society. So that's education, government, business, arts and culture, media, family, and religion. And they want to influence each of these. So sure that, most folks can put two and two together and understand that they intend to have power over these facets of community and society.
Mm-hmm.
And I noticed that you said was.
I just figured that it got rolled into Project 2025.
They are alive and well.
Oh,
and I
man.
know this because I just recently witnessed this firsthand in my hometown here. So I've been getting more and more active in my local arts association. I've got the time and the energy to dedicate to volunteering there. So I've been, going to board meetings, even though I'm not a board member. I'm just a regular member. But I go to board meetings to see where there are areas where I can help out and volunteer. And at this last board meeting that I went to, they had a guest come to speak.
Board.
Yes.
Okay.
And this guest was a lady that I'm going to call Linda.
Okay.
Linda came and she sat down and she said, I just wanted to clear the air about what Seven Mountains Group is. And she handed out these flyers, and I recognized her right away. Yes. So apparently she had been, she had reached out to the Arts Association before wanting to affiliate with the Arts Association.
Yeah.
And there had been a little bit of unease, a little bit of pushback because it is a religious group.
Yeah.
And we try to be, open to everybody. We try not to look like we side with one view or another. But she said that she wanted to come and clear the air about them because they had been trying to get involved in the Arts Association, have us, affiliate with them publicly. And she said, I just want to make it clear, this is our goal. We want to influence these 7 mountains of society, and arts is one of those mountains, and our goal is just to influence. We're not diminutive. Our plan is not to take over. We're not affiliated with Rafael Cruz.
I mean, but
protesting too much.
Like, Dominion is the name of the game.
It is, but she is rejecting that. She's claiming that is not true. But, I mean, why would you seek influence if you're not going to exert that influence?
Yeah.
And the way that she had presented the group was as basically just another charitable church organization that wanted to give the Arts Association money to fund their projects. And I had recently actually just heard about Seven Mountains from an NPR podcast that I listened to that talks about evangelical extremists in our country. It's called Extremely American. Very good. But because I had recently learned about them, I was, aware of what her actual goals were. So even though I'm not a board member, I spoke up, and I explained, and I told her, I apologize if I've been misinformed. Please let me know if I'm wrong, but this is what I know about your group. And then I explained that to her. She didn't deny any of it, but she got very mad.
How dare you call her out?
I know. How dare I speak the truth? There were a couple other board members or people at the meeting that were board members who had also heard the same things that I had heard, and they backed me up on it. Unfortunately, another board member did not want me to be talking about this, so they reminded me that I'm not a board member and that I should not be speaking. So I had already said my piece at that point, so I apologized and went quiet. But my whole point in calling today is to remind folks that these Seven Mountains people are actively trying to gain influence over local groups, not just local government, but local community groups as well. After that meeting, I reached out to some friends of mine who are, I wouldn't call them politicians, but they're active in the local government scene and other nonprofits and stuff around town. And I said, hey, have you heard about this Seven Mountains group? And I explained what this lady had come and said. And I've been informed that, yes, there are folks that are with Seven Mountains that are actively trying to gain influence over those 7 mountains, those 7 pillars of community in our town. I found out that there's someone running for the school board. They've been having coffee with the mayor every week.
Oh, jeez.
Yes. They've been funding a bunch of what look like really great projects, and that's what they do. They get the community so dependent on their funding and their help that they get that influence. Yeah,
you can browbeat people and go, well, if you're going to display, do you remember Piss Christ?
I don't think I've ever heard of this, but I can imagine. I'm sorry if that cackle
no
your mic. I couldn't contain it.
Oh, you're good. So there was an art exhibit a long time ago called Piss Christ, where somebody filled up like a big jar with piss and stuck a crucifix in it and capped it off, and they were like, behold, art. and it went up in museum in this kind of, touring whatever, it did what art does, and pissed off Christians, and specifically the Catholic League went nuts over this. I think that it makes sense though to want to get into art, and I do want to state the other side of it, and that is that everyone can create art. And what people need to recognize though is art is influential, art is subversive, and art, whether you like it or not, is trying to sell you on something, is trying to change your opinion towards something, be it like a kind of a return to quote unquote this kind of historic revisionism of what America could be or used to be or should be. It could be avant-garde. It can seek to break down the patriarchal hold that you know what I'm saying.
I get it.
But what people also need to recognize, though, is that it can also be and is often used as propaganda. And that, every government in every war has used art as propaganda. Yeah. And so, how much propaganda do you want to allow in? Because that feels like that's kind of what you would be selling your soul for, is exactly. You take this money and in exchange you
they
fly
get to say what we get to hang.
Or that you display their propaganda either exclusively or before others.
Another concern that I've got is not only that, which is a huge concern, but if the Art Association affiliates with Seven Mountains, that kind of gives them clout. It makes them look more reputable, makes it easier for them to infiltrate other organizations, gets people's guards down about them.
Yeah, absolutely. They can't be that bad. They're in the artsy-fartsy liberal community.
Exactly, yes.
Yeah.
And the thing that really bothers me is not only is she very blatantly explaining that she wants to exert influence over the Art Association, but before she had come to that meeting, apparently she had donated some money to the Art Association, not signed by Seven Mountains, but it came from her through an organization that Seven Mountains has created within our community, and the Art Association, not knowing that it was tied to this extremist religious group, had accepted that money. And boy, did she bring that up at that meeting and let us know that she was very upset that we had accepted her money and yet we're not willing to affiliate with them. And then she said, well, if you're not willing to affiliate with this local group that has been giving you financial and moral support, maybe we don't want to affiliate with you either. So essentially, yes.
I feel like that's the card you're supposed to bring out after you have the people on the hook.
Yeah,
right?
No. I think that's where she made her mistake.
Yeah.
That tipped us off to her true intentions.
Right, yeah. And if she's already pulling that card and you have not yet chosen to affiliate, that sounds like a really bad relationship.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Yeah, and just to be clear, I do think that even if it's an organization that I agree with, pulling that shit is...
It's deceptive. It's dishonest.
It is, and also I don't know. I don't think you're going to win hearts and minds by shutting down the other side, and never letting them speak either. Yes, we should create a world where there's no bigotry and there's no hatred and all of that, and we want to work towards that. But often, channels like this, right, where people are calling in because they have different views, they can be effective in helping people think about these things. And so, I'm sorry, I'm just rambling at this point. Sunny,
no, I get it.
I'm, damn. It sounds like it might be helpful if you maybe put together did the board just say no, straight up?
Well, at that meeting, the lady kind of left in a huff because she was very upset. But there are discussions happening within the art association right now, where some of the board members who are more sympathetic to the lady that had come, like they're friends with her. It's a small community; people know each other here. There's a discussion happening about whether or not we should accept money from this group. The kind of most people seem to agree that it's okay to accept donations from anybody because there are no strings attached to a donation.
Yeah.
But there's a discussion happening over whether or not we would accept sponsorships or affiliate, and I am wholeheartedly opposed to it. So were a few other folks on the board. I've been asked to join the board, like to accept the nominations. I don't know if I'm going to or not, but as of right now, I'm just.
So, question: what gets tied into a sponsorship that you would not accept? Because, like.
Mm-hmm. Well, we don't want to look like we're affiliating with any political or religious organizations. Period. Yeah, and as far as I'm aware, I don't think that that's in our bylaws, but that's just the way that we've been doing things for so long.
Yeah.
So I think that there's a discussion happening right now over whether or not we should implement that policy officially, or if it's okay to just accept this money. Because, man, if you've looked into it, ProPublica did an excellent article on where these Seven Mountains group get their funding.
Mm-hmm.
There's big money in this, man. This is where they get their money from.
Well,
like, they can give us a big shiny check with chains attached.
I mean, I'm just saying, if you accept a sponsorship to, I don't know, display Republican art for a month, and then the next month you accept a sponsorship from Democrats and display Democrat, you can play them against each other, and every other month, have people go, well, then I want my thing to be. Anyway, that's capitalistic.
Well, anybody can submit artwork to be displayed in the gallery if they so choose. We're not going to deny anything. That's the beauty of it.
Fair enough.
As it is right now, eventually, if Seven Mountains gets their way, who knows what's going to happen?
Fair enough.
The way that it is right now, anybody can submit their artwork to be displayed in the gallery. What we're afraid of is being financially tied to this group and reliant on their funding so much that we have to bend to their will if they ever decide to exert it.
No.
But my main reason for calling was to just remind folks to vote locally. It is very important. Groups like this are trying to gain influence everywhere. Look into your local politicians, see who they're affiliated with. Keep an eye out for the Seven Mountains stuff. It is scary.
Yeah, and not just them. I visited with a friend who was visiting Portland yesterday, and they said that the day beforehand they were given what's essentially a chick track from Living Waters. Like, they're still doing that shit.
Ooh.
So absolutely. And also look into Piss Christ. It's a cool rabbit hole.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we'll do. That'll be fun little distraction from all this Seven Mountains crap I've been inundating myself with to try to understand it.
Definitely. Just if you're gonna watch Bill Donahue, because he gets brought, just take a Xanax or something. He'll piss you off. Sonny.
Oh boy. Okay.
Thank you for calling in.
Oh, thanks for taking my call, Eric. Always nice to talk to you.
Good to talk to you too.
Oh, by the way, really enjoyed the at the Existentialist Cafe.
You did? Oh, good.
Yeah, I'm going to be reading more Sartre because I had no idea how much I had in common with the guy. I'm pretty sure he was ace because he was disgusted by sex, even though I'm sure. Yeah,
but
anyway.
But he wasn't aro ace. Like, he was definitely in love with Simone de Beauvoir. And and there were deeply problematic things with, like, let's not pretend that's not the case. But also, just some advice. I honestly got more from people who, books written about Sartre and people discussing Sartre. Being in Nothingness is truly an awful read.
I'm about to pick up Nausea because I'm interested.
Yeah,
but,
it is just so dense.
Gotcha. Well, I appreciate the heads up.
It is rightfully intimidating. But Sonny, thank you for taking the advice, and I hope you have an awesome rest of your week.
Oh, you too. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
That was sweet. All right, I want to roll into the next call, but before I do, I don't even know if I put up the phone number. And we do have this one more caller, but I would love to take your calls. If you want to talk about what you believe and why, if you want to talk about just an experience that you've been having that you might want to, get some advice on when it comes to dealing with family, deconverting, or, exploring philosophical topics, or maybe just you deeply disagree with me on something. Here's the phone number. I would love to take your call. I would love for this to be a nice full episode. The phone number is 412-SKEPGEN. That's 412-753-7436. Toll free. Or you can go to tiny.cc/Skepgen. That's tiny.cc/SKEPGEN. That is also toll free, but yeah, the tiny.cc link online, usually nice, clean, crisp sound. Our call screener is waiting to talk to you, and I would love to hear what you have to say. That said, let's talk to Summer. Summer! The ongoing saga of Summer's calls.
Yes.
From depression, anxiety, to nihilism, to exploring other kind of spiritualities. I'm definitely interested in kind of what do you got today?
All right, Eric. You had me watch that damn documentary, Tamari.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. I was disgusted by it, Eric. Like, I went through a range of emotions because I taught yoga for 20 years. And, like that, like, genre of, like, philosophical and mysticism and that, like, was so, like, I thought, anyway.
I actually, Summer, can I ask you for a favor?
Sure.
So I've got there are all these people that are watching who probably have not seen Kumare, and it has been years since I've seen it. Would you possibly be able to give me give us a snapshot of kind of what the movie's about so that we can all follow along as we talk about this?
Yeah, great. So the whole premise of the documentary is this guy pretends to be a guru, goes and works with he goes and he does a workshop and he pretends to be this guru, and all these people like, oh my God, you're so wonderful, you're psychic, I connect with you, everything you're saying. And he was making up all of this shit. And it was just, and then by the end of the documentary, he reveals who he is, and then most of the people are cool with it. And it blew my mind. So that drew me to the question, and that's why I'm calling this morning, is how do you weigh personal experience against expert opinion? Because if I was in that session with him for a week with this fake guru, and I learned that it was all fake and he was making up all these things, I walked out. I would have walked out just like a couple people did.
Yeah.
But the other people, they were like, oh my God, I love this twist, and oh my God, like I'm going to keep following you, and yada, yada, yada.
So I've got to, I want to add in a little bit more here before we get to the question, because I do love the question. For people who are wondering, it is an actual thing that happened. This is not like a fictional story that's being told. Someone saw how white Westerners were treating Indian religion and these, this kind of deifying yogis as these spiritual, psychic whatevers. And he thought, you know what? I think it's all in their heads. I'm going to pretend to be one and see what happens. And so I don't think he did any more than other yogis do. So at the end, he wanted to. He created this workshop. He started doing these classes, and he quickly developed a cult. There was a following, an inner circle, outer circle. There were people who were, changing the way they dressed, the way they talk, who was influencing the way that they interacted with each other and self-identified. And it was just really, really intense how quickly people became, disciples of Kumare. And eventually he was like, I need to tell these people that I'm a fraud. Like, the whole point of this was to kind of show that, this kind of thing. And it really broke him up. He was like, I'm terrified. I made these relationships with people who really look up to me, and now I've got to tell them I'm a fraud and it's going to suck. And he did. And he really upset people. So my first question is, which part of it upset you, Summer? Was it the part of the fact that he lied to them, or are you upset at the fact that the people believed him? Like, what stuck with you?
Yeah, so it was the part that he deceived them. And then I went back, because I went to these kinds of workshops before, Eric, and it was so disappointing to me because, I've been trying to be a skeptic and an atheist, and after getting out of the Catholic religion for 50 years, and now my mind is blown, and like all the color has been taken out of my world, and it just seems like, what do I believe in anymore? Is there nothing to believe in? But then I talk to these people that have these personal experiences with these fake gurus, apparently, and yet they're getting all of this love and emotion, and they're taking these, fake concepts, and they're building it into something, and they're worshiping these people, and it's ridiculous. So I don't know what to believe anymore, because
Yeah, Summer, I cannot get over how open and honest you are in our calls. Like, it is so refreshing to have someone who's just so, like, as honest as you're being, and I truly just want to. I appreciate it. I really do. So I'll tell you what I think. Number one, I don't think every one of those yogis is a con artist. I think when you get involved in those things, it's easy to get sucked in, and drink your own Kool-Aid. And so I don't think everyone there is being dishonest. But also, I feel like it's a really good lens to kind of reflect back what you're seeing. That, people will look at, how am I going to describe this? Okay, so I believe I think it was in either it was in the Andes or in the mountains of Tibet, but there was a mountain culture that said that their elders lived until 200 years old, right? Americans found out about it, Europeans found out about it, and they're just like, oh my gosh, we need to eat whatever they're eating. We need to do whatever exercise they're doing because they found the secret to longevity, right? And it became a fad. I wish that I could pull up the exact details, but the point that I'm getting to, though, is it turns out that when an elder passed, you took on their name. And so people were saying that they were 200, but what they were actually saying in context was, this name is 200 years old. Edward Jacobson III is not the same person as, his great-grandfather or whatever. So I feel like, if we don't, contextualize it and see it plainly, we can blow it up to be a really big thing. But your question was, how do we weigh personal experience against expert opinion, right?
Right.
Okay. So personal experience is definitely important. And how am I going to describe this? Because I do have I've changed in my approach to this over the years. I used to be much more hardline and mean about it, but really, honestly, I don't doubt people's experiences often. I don't. In the same way, I don't deny people's feelings, right? If I feel upset, are you going to tell me I'm not upset? Are you going to ask me to validate, whether or not I ought to be upset about a thing? Let's say I I don't know, I went to go get breakfast at McDonald's, but they're not serving breakfast anymore, and I'm really, really angry. You're not going to be like, Eric, it's a little thing. Fucking calm down. No, because obviously I'm angry in that moment, whether or not it's valid or just or whatever. I'm experiencing anger, right? And when it comes to experience, I've done hallucinogens, in kind of a spiritual journey, context, and I loved it. I had out-of-body experiences. I did all kinds of crazy shit, in these hallucinations. Those were experiences I had. But did those experiences map to reality?
Yeah, probably not. I mean, I had those experiences too. I mean, I've done 5-gram mushroom trips.
Holy fuckballs. I want to try that. I have not yet, and I want to so bad. But okay, so you had an experience. The fact that it happened in your head does not invalidate it as an experience. You just need to contextualize it. Right?
Contextualize it how?
I was messing with my brain chemistry.
Right.
And I had a cool experience. That's awesome. And it doesn't need to be more. I think the problem is, the problem is our religiosity sells us on an idea that it can't deliver on. When I lost my faith, I had to grieve the people who died twice. I grieved when they died, and then I grieved when I realized I wasn't going to see them in heaven. And that really hurt. But if I had never thought that I was going to see them in heaven, would I have had to grieve twice? No. I was told something. I was told that there was this beautiful place that you go to after you die, where there's justice, and somebody, some big father figure is going to care for you and has a plan for you. That sounds really, really nice. You were sold on a bill of goods that is just not delivered on. And so I feel like, Summer, you're reaching for this grand master plan, some large overarching thing. And the thing is, we don't really need it. The only reason we're looking for it is because we were sold on that as religious people. As part of that deconversion, we need to now reprioritize what is big to us. I used to see myself as this small little ant, this piece of thread in the grand tapestry of the universe, that God was making. And it took me a long time to see myself as a piece of thread in the grand tapestry of the universe. And it just is, that is enough. The purpose that I create for myself, right? The goals that I set for myself and that I achieve is so much more vital and so much more cathartic because I'm the one who made that plan. And then when I lived up to it, that means that I achieved what I had made my purpose. And now I get to create an entire new purpose. It's exciting. It feels like how people must have felt in the 1800s reading about the Wild West, where there's this beautiful frontier in front of us. And so addressing that piece, about the world being desaturated and kind of taking the color out of things, I do want to stress to you that, you have always been the person who was dreaming. You were sold this bill of goods, and so you shaped your dreams to look like that. But they were always your dreams. And you don't stop. You get to choose what direction you dream in next.
Well, that's the thing, Eric. So, now that I've come out of all this magical thinking, and, like coming down to basics and understanding, now there's no magic left in my life, it seems. There's nothing.
Really?
This cold, hard universe that is so indifferent. And what is there? What else is there then? These experiences that I had on mushroom trips, they were so amazing and beautiful, and I thought I was going to different dimensions and talking to different beings, on DMT and things like that. And now, skepticism has come into my life, and now I'm like, shit, there's nothing magical about the universe anymore.
But there is. There absolutely is.
What is it?
Sure, Summer. You have iron in your blood, right?
Right?
Do you know where that iron comes from?
No?
It doesn't come from the middle of our planet because it doesn't get hot enough to create iron. Did you know that? So where does the iron
No?
in your blood come from? A lot of the heavier elements, right? The more kind of, rare elements that we find on our planet, and even a lot of the less rare ones, they come from the formation of our planet. They existed before the Earth existed. A lot of the rare elements on this planet are only here because they were forged in the heart of an exploding star, including the freaking iron in your blood. You are not just some, random accident and it doesn't matter. You are a random accident made of star shit. Like, we are made of stars. That's incredible. Do you know how amazing it is that we get to talk to each other, that we are a part of the universe? We're not in the universe. We are part of it. And we are the one of the only parts that we're the only part we know of that can actually talk about this, that we are a blip of the universe understanding itself just a little bit. It's incredible. I actually, somebody pointed out to me a few years ago that wood in the universe, right? Wood from trees is infinitely more rare than platinum and gold.
Really?
Wood grows. You're not going to get trees on Mars. You're not going to get trees on asteroids that are growing. No.
Right, but I'm sure that, there are other planets that probably have something like that.
Maybe we'll learn about it, but we definitely know about a lot of planets that have platinum and gold.
Right, but what does that make? What does that make anything to do with magical thinking and like? What does that have to do with anything?
Because at the core of magical thinking is preserving a sense of awe and wonder, a sense of being a part of something beautiful and seeing beauty in the world around you. There are so many ways that we can still see the beauty in the world. We can still have awe and wonder by going to a concert, by appreciating art, spending time with loved ones, and recognizing that our experience, this little blip of life that we get to have on this little spinning rock, is so unfathomably rare and unlikely.
Right, but isn't that just fleeting?
Of course, everything is fleeting.
Right, but isn't that right? Yeah, exactly. Everything is fleeting. Can't there be something more? Can't we aspire to be something more and
sure we could
not have it fleeting?
Like what? Let's say we took the entire planet and carved it out into one beautiful statue. At some point, the planet will no longer be. At some point, our star will explode. Right?
Right.
Everything at that level is meaningless. Everything. But here's the deal is, okay, this is going to sound really, really cheesy. So please put up with me here, okay?
Okay.
I used to write all the time. And I used to write poetry all of the time. And as a young adult, I was upset that there was no way to say I love you that hasn't already been said. There was no way to express the feelings that I felt for someone else romantically that haven't already been put to paper a million times. And people fall in love all the time. They fall out of love. Through the centuries that love has been this big thing, and what possibly could I do to be different, to be unique? And eventually the answer that I came up with for me is that someone might say the same words that I do, and someone might love them in the future or have loved them in the past, but the love that I have have for that person in this moment, at this time, makes it unique, makes it special. And there's never going to be another time where me, and this other person both get to share that love. It is entirely unique. That's beautiful.
Yeah, that is beautiful. But I'm Arrow Ace, and
Okay.
so I feel like I'm never going to experience that.
Yeah, but what about music? What about art? What about, hobbies, things that bring you joy?
Yeah, I love all that. It just seems like I feel like being a skeptic and being such a hardline skeptic
Mm-hmm.
is, just taking all the joy out of my life of like there's nothing to look forward to after I pass away. There's, everything is fleeting. And so I don't know. I don't want to go down that route. I want to know that there are still exciting things to explore, and there's still, hope and
Of course there's hope.
excitement.
Hope for us is only contextual, because your personal hope only lasts as long as you're alive. And the hope that you have for other people only lasts for as long as they're alive. I have very nebulous hopes for the future after that. I hope that the human race continues and that they can find peace and joy and all of that. But the fact that humans are probably not going to last forever, does that mean that I would want to stop trying to make this world a better place? That I would want to stop making other people's lives better?
No, of course not.
But why? Why would I care about global warming if people are gonna all die eventually? Why would I care about feeding the homeless? We're all gonna die eventually. Why would I be kind to someone when the fact is that they're not gonna remember it someday?
Right.
Why? Why would I do that?
Because you want to be a good person. You want people to treat you well, even right?
Well, it brings me joy. I do have hope.
Yeah.
I have hope for those people. I have hope for myself. And I'm not gonna, I'm trying to find a nicer way of saying this. So give me just a second. I'm not, because here's the thing is, I don't mean this personally with you, but I do feel like that overarching, lack of some grand design misses the forest for the trees, and it pisses away all of the best parts of life. And I'm not going to do that. I don't want to piss away the joy that I get in helping my neighbor. I don't want to disregard the kindness that I show others, or to shrug off the kindness other people show me, because who cares? It's fleeting. All of it matters. It matters in the most important way. It matters in the part where you're here and you're actually impacted by it. I don't care that 500 years from now, people aren't going to know my name. They're not. And why would I expect them to? The only way they're going to know my name is if I do something really fucking evil, or if I luck into doing something really, really great. That doesn't make my life worth less. What matters to me is the people that I impact now. If I can help 2-3 generations, maybe, great. But eventually they're all going to forget me. And
But is that true, Eric? Because our conversation right now is on the internet. The internet's forever. So maybe we won't, be that way. Maybe people will listen, right?
But also, no, the Library of Alexandria burned down. I think we're one EMP away from lose. We're one solar flare away from losing everything that's ever been on the internet. I mean, there's no guarantee that that's lasting forever. And besides, who's going to be bored enough to watch my shit in 500 years? Summer, we're having conversations. We're building a community together. I care about the people who are watching and listening now, and who are helping each other now. I hope in 500 years, morally, we will have gotten to the point where we're past what we're talking about now. It's irrelevant. We're talking about something else. We're talking about how stupid the people in the 2020s were for driving cars manually. Oh my God, could you imagine that death trap Maybe everybody's vegan in the future, and that's what they're talking about. But the fact is, like, we matter in the context of now when we're experiencing it. And what matters to me is the people who I'm impacting and who are impacting me. All of that is...
But, we talk about these philosophers and we go back to these Greek philosophers, and we're still talking about them today. And I kind of want to be one of those people. I don't know, like, I aspire to be more than what I am today.
Awesome. So I will tell you right now, I have spent time with extraordinarily influential people. They don't think that of themselves. If you make that happen, other people will think that about you. You still won't think that about yourself.
Right. Yeah.
So if it is an internal thing, be prepared that most people, that doesn't really happen until after they die. And then the other thing is, those great thinkers, were they the first ones? Was Socrates really the first one to go, why? No.
Yeah, probably not.
No. Do you think that cynics weren't around before, the Greeks? Like, it is a human heritage. And okay, cool. If you want to, aspire to do something great that you'll be remembered for, don't make it something evil. And like, that's wonderful. But at the same time, is that the only thing worth living for?
No, but it just seems like everything is so fleeting now, and that there is, when you're a theist and you have all of you have a special kind of magical thinking about the universe, and I could see how that's detrimental to the truth. But then there's still a sense of wonderment. But there's nothing really left to explore on our planet, except our own minds, our own consciousness.
Not true. There's everything to explore. There's everything to explore. Go into any field of science or study and ask them how much they know about everything. And the real smart ones are going to go, I know a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of a percent.
Exactly. I get that. Yeah, I get that. But I don't know, Eric. I don't know what I'm doing anymore.
No, what you're doing is you're deconstructing. And it doesn't just stop with God and religion. It has so much to do, and wonder is a really, really big piece of it. The fact is, every 9 months or so, I stop showering and I love a good bubble bath. Like, I'll go, you know what? I'm not going to shower today. I'm going to draw a really hot bath and I'm going to put bubbles in it. And I'm going to light a candle and put on some lo-fi and just have a bubble bath. And that is fleeting. In a few hours, that water will have gone tepid. But that doesn't make it any less enjoyable. In fact, I enjoy it more in that moment when it is hot and it feels good on my bones and it's wonderful. And then I wind up burning myself and I don't take a bath for another month or another 9 months until I forget just how much I didn't like baths. But like, when I do that, right? Like, the fleeting nature of that bubble bath does not make it less wonderful or less enjoyed.
Right. But you mentioned deconstructing, and I keep questioning everything now. Before I didn't question everything. Now I'm questioning everything, and it is exhausting.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And I don't want to keep doing that forever. I want to answer so I can move on to something else. But I was watching a bunch of Forrest Valentine videos, and he questions everything, and he keeps questioning everything. And I'm like, oh, I want to keep questioning everything. But then I've been doing that, and it is exhausting. I don't know if I could continue living like that.
Well, it sounds like what you need to find is what is sufficient. No one is going to know everything, right? I don't know how to be a brain surgeon. I do not know how to be a lawyer. I'm not a chemist. I'm not a physicist. But I have some knowledge. I think I have enough to get by with what I do, and that is sufficient. The fact is, most people don't give two shits about philosophy. And they just live their lives. They're doing whatever they're doing. Right?
Right. That's why I call you. Most of my friends can't talk to me about philosophy.
Right. So, like, find what is sufficient. But don't bemoan the fact that you have an interest. If something is bringing you joy, let it bring you joy. And if it is something that is causing you angst and anxiety, then let's break that down a bit. What about it? Like, what about philosophy do you feel like you're not getting that is a thorn in your side?
Well, like this whole, like monads, these Greek philosophers came up with these monad theory, and about, and I look into that, or I look into nihilism, or I look into, existentialism, and there's always something more, and there's always something more to think about and ponder and study and read, and it just seems like it's just never ending, and it never gets to a concrete answer. So that brings me back to, I don't know what.
But Summer, every minute, like I think it's like hundreds or thousands of hours of more content is uploaded to YouTube. Every minute. There will never be enough time in your life for you to watch every video on YouTube. But why is that not bringing you anxiety?
I don't know. I just want answers, and it seems like growing up in, a theist or a religious background, it provides answers. And so now I don't have answers anymore. I have theories and questions, and I guess it's just kind of sad that there isn't, answers anymore.
I think that is a very reasonable thing to grieve.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I could pray today. I could pray all I want, but that prayer at some point felt hollow for me, and it doesn't feel like there was anybody listening on the other side. And over time,
exactly. Prayer is stupid. Yeah.
Well, it's not stupid. Like, a lot of people meditate, The thing is, though, is when I was praying specifically, eventually it just wasn't enough. I didn't lose prayer, though. Like, I just kind of outgrew it. There's that Bible verse, when I was a child, I spoke as a child, I played as a child, I thought as a child, but when I became a man, I put away childish things, right? Even in their theology, there's a place for that. You outgrew it. And now you have something else. You have accepting things tentatively. You have wisdom. And also, don't forget, you also have the atheist smug sense of superiority. So, you got that at least. But seriously, like, it sucks that you were sold on a bill of goods like that. It sucks that we were told that we were going to go to heaven, that we were going to see the people that we loved who died again. It sucks. But part of the reason we have that yearning is because we were lied to. We were told that we were going to have that in the first place. And we want something to replace it with. And that's really shitty. I mean,
yeah.
You can liken it to me saying, hey, Summer, in a year, I'm going to give you $1 million. And so you live the next year anticipating that $1 million. You make plans. Maybe you take on debt that you wouldn't be able to pay off otherwise, but you're like, that $1 million is coming. And in the end, I don't give it to you. Like, there's a sense of loss, even though you didn't have it before and you didn't have it after. All of a sudden, you definitely feel the weight of not having $1 million.
Right. And I think that's why a lot of people don't give up their belief in God, because they don't want to be disappointed when they give that up.
Yeah, absolutely. And they want to replace it with something.
Right. And that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking to replace it with something, and I'm finding out there's nothing to replace it with.
Well, so I can give you a couple of things, right? There are some atheists who dive into hobbies, absolutely dive into hobbies, and they're able to find the community and support, and then eventually the excitement about whatever the hobbies are that it's bringing to them, and that helps a ton for those people. There are other people who decide that, hey, you know what? I'm not going to leave the religious traditions that brought me joy. I'm still going to do them. I'm just not going to believe the supernatural part. Do you know how many people are close to me in my life who are atheists, who do things like witchcraft or polytheism? Maybe it can be, whatever mythology they decide to follow, be it Egyptian or Norse or whatever the case is. They're atheists. So why are they doing it? Because...
Yeah, I'm so surprised.
Why?
Well, because that's the route that I'm going towards.
Cool.
And I'm like, why would I replace one mystical thing with another? That doesn't make sense.
Well, let's talk about maybe witchcraft first. Okay, and I know I've got other people, and Summer, I wish I could.
I know, yeah.
You know what?
Yeah.
Honestly, Summer, I'm going to forget in the next week where we're at. But how about we put a pin and pick this up next week? Because that's a great question.
Let's do that.
And I'm not a polytheist, but there are pagans, polytheists, and people who practice witchcraft who watch the show. So I'm going to encourage those people to call in, and maybe we can, have a more nuanced discussion that can kind of take those things into account.
I think that'll be fun, and I'm going to jump on the Discord after the show.
All right. I do have to say, I'm not going to be doing an after show today.
Okay.
I know. I do every week, but I'm helping a friend with a video for their YouTube channel. And I've got a book after the show just so that I can make sure that, I get that done. But I hope to talk to you next week.
Me too.
All right. Take care, Summer.
Bye.
Oh, there's so much there. So here's one of the things that I really, really enjoy about Summer. There have been callers in the past who will call in about a different major thing every single weekend. And what it winds up being is those people don't want to do the thinking themselves. And so they bring it to me and then they go, well, this is what I believe this week, just so that I can do all of the skepticism part for them. And they've used shows like this to do that. Summer doesn't do that. Summer has been calling in with just this open, honest, vulnerability and just I really, really appreciate those kinds of calls. And it feels so fundamentally different from others in a similar situation. If you're willing to put in the work, if you want to, really think about something and you have questions and you want to talk about it, and it's the part where it's at that point that you're ready to talk to someone else or you want another opinion, that's when you can call in. And that's definitely what I feel like every time Summer calls. All right, let's move on. Oh boy. Okay. We're going to give this person a shot. This is Doug in Arizona. Doug, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Hey, so I've got some interesting stuff in the notes. It says that you've been banned from things, or have you tried calling into other shows? I'm trying to figure out what the context of you calling in.
Someone encouraged me to call in via email.
Okay.
So he said that last week you were begging for calls, so I thought, okay, I will call in.
Well, okay, that sounds good.
But full disclosure, we probably disagree politically on almost every single thing, but I'm not sure about that because I haven't talked to you before, but that's my guess. But your mods did block me here, and I do not know why. I asked 2 questions.
I honestly, I do not know. I was really involved in the call, but what I can tell you is there's no way I'd be able to do a show without them. And so I need to trust their decisions. And so
I understand.
that's kind of, you have to draw some lines at some point when it comes to doing shows like this. And I absolutely am always going to draw the line on backing up my mods because they're the ones who are volunteering to help me in the first place. So that said, thank you for understanding that. I see something about racism and I'm nervous, Doug.
Why?
Why? Because racism is an awful topic, but I'm going to try my best. What's going on? Let's talk about it.
Well, it was. I just got back. I took my wife and one child. Well, she's not a child anymore. She's 21, and we went to see the Matt Walsh documentary, "Am I a Racist?" And it was quite good. And I encourage you to go take a look at it and see if there's anything you agree with it on. Because I think, well, I don't know. Should I give spoilers or not?
I mean, I think probably most people watching are not going to watch it, so I don't mind if you spoil it.
Yeah, and that's the sad thing. Like, people who disagree with Matt Walsh, I mean, like, I like watching people I disagree with. It's fun for me.
Yeah.
So I encourage people, like, get out of your comfort zone, get out of your safe place and be uncomfortable. But I actually think you're going to laugh. It was quite funny. And the moral of the story is that emotional manipulation is not a good thing.
Sure.
And there's a lot of race baiting out there by people who are using things like guilt to make money.
Let me think about that.
I can give you an example.
Well, I'm actually thinking about, most of the race baiting that I see come from people who are using anger to make money. People who are saying, like, I had a family member, not gonna, for obvious reasons, I'm not gonna give, too much information about them. But they had told me one time that there are only, what was it? Only like 30% of Germans left in Germany. Does that concept make sense to you?
What concept? That there's
30% of Germans left in Germany.
You would have to define German, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I asked.
Yeah.
I was like, are the other 70% there not German? Like, are they not citizens or what? And at the core of that, what do you think he told me?
Maybe he went to several generations. I don't know.
No, he was
or culture, maybe.
He was talking about racial purity. Yeah, and I don't think he would have used that language. But if I were to repeat back to him what he said and called it racial purity, that would have been exactly it. So I think that a lot of people use things like that, anger and xenophobia, to race bait.
How about guilt?
Oh, guilt is a tool that everybody uses, and it's awful.
Yeah.
But
so then I think you would like the documentary though, because that's one of the main things they focus on, is especially like the stereotypical white liberal woman feeling tremendous amounts of guilt for privilege, and then these people take advantage of them, charge them. Like, there was one dinner that it was $5,000 a plate to sit, get fed food, and hear about how racist they are and how privileged they are.
Well, I definitely think that there's what's the term? There's a lot of social signaling going on. And I think that both liberals and Democrats do it. They socially signal and do some weird shit. And at the same time, though, like, what is privilege to you, Doug?
Giving the benefit of the doubt.
Mm-hmm. In total, it's giving the benefit of the doubt?
Well, that's, the short, quick answer to what privilege is. So having advantages, having given the benefit of the doubt. But for me, here's an interesting question back to you is, Where do you think privilege comes from?
Systemic issues, mostly. Mostly it's
I know,
systemic.
but
Like I'll give you an example. I worked in a call center, and there were times when an older man would be absolutely demeaning and cruel to a woman that was on the other line. That was one of my coworkers, and they're dealing with this guy who's just absolutely not taking anything that she's saying, even though she's trying to help him. And eventually, he needs to be put on the line with a man, so the man can say the exact same thing. So he'll go, "Oh, okay," because he does not view a woman as having the ability to have any kind of credibility or power. Right? That's privilege that men have.
well, that's more sexism than privilege, I would say.
Well, I think that privilege is definitely rooted in isms like that, sexism, racism. And I don't think that it's necessarily like, I think that older man grew up in an environment where that was the case. I don't think he chose to be a sexist. I think that he grew up in a sexist environment that shaped the way that he thought about the world. Right? That I knew somebody who I keep bringing up these analogies, but it's the only way that I can really try and share without feeling accusatory here, right? I know somebody who worked in prisons and worked their entire time in prisons, retired, and they said that they thought that blacks and Mexicans were genetically just more likely to commit crimes. Did he go into it a racist? I don't think so. I think, though, that he lives in a system where it's a whole lot easier to arrest, minorities because they're less likely to have the money to fight it in court. Right? It's easy pickings for police when they're going through the hood. But the fact is that, drug use is all over the place. Drug use is not a single race thing. But if you're a minority and do drugs, you're more likely to get arrested for it. We're not taking the Wall Street bankers and putting them all in prison for doing coke, but they are doing drugs, right? They're abusing prescription medications. They've got, doctors who are willing to prescribe them whatever they want. They're just not getting arrested. But what happened was this person went to the prison that they worked in over and over and over again, their entire career. And they saw minorities in prison. And so they shaped their view of the world around that. That's systemic. It's not him needing to, he didn't choose that necessarily. The world that he lived in shaped him to be a racist. That's systemic. Police officers, if if you're a police officer and your beat is in an underprivileged area with a whole bunch of minority folks that live there, and you're having these bad experiences, it is going to shape the way you view minorities. And all of a sudden, you're going to find that the police institution
I don't
becomes systemically racist.
I don't disagree with a lot of what you're saying, but I consider myself a skeptic, and the name of your show is Skeptic Generation.
Yeah, absolutely.
What would be an alternate explanation for, let's say, why African Americans end up in jail at higher rates, other than racism?
Oh, lack of money, lack of the chance to defend yourself in court.
No, I mean even being even before they go to their court date.
Mm-hmm.
What would be another explanation?
Yeah, there's plenty of body cam footage out there. I don't think I need to come up with something off the top of my head, because what I've seen, at least, is that, and what I honestly, when I was out in the sun a lot more, I was a lot darker. People could tell that I was Mexican. I experienced as well that if you get pulled over and your skin is a darker color, you're going to get a very different experience from police, just generally.
Right, but I'm asking for an explanation other than that, other than racism.
I mean,
what would explain
what gets people in jail other than people arresting them? I'm trying to understand what you're asking me to explain. If someone gets arrested, it's because they got arrested by cops, right?
Right. And why would they get arrested?
Because The
they're
cop.
committing
Well, actually, if you're going to say committing a crime, take a look at hold on. Give me just a second. I feel like I jumped ahead and I want to take 2 steps back. Okay, Doug?
Okay.
Do you think that minorities commit more crimes than white people?
Certain crimes, yes.
Like what?
I think the statistics show it. So if you put
The arrest,
different boxes.
The arrest statistics show it.
Well, okay, if we're talking about do we have the omniscience of God to know for sure, no. But being found guilty in a jury of their peers, like for example, you've heard people will say I'm racist just for bringing this up, but about 50% of all the murders in the United States are perpetrated by African Americans.
So when it comes to systemic violence and all of that, which again, I feel underqualified, to say the least.
Do you think that the stat I just gave is a result of systemic racism?
I do. I do.
Okay, so you come up with another explanation.
Well, as an example, like I've had callers who have absolutely called in, and it's the big family secret that Uncle Joe killed his wife. There are tons of wealthy white people who commit murders and get away with it, and there are tons of I feel like if we did live in a fair world, that you'd see an even split along that way, that people would commit crimes. I mean, like with the drug thing, it has been studied. Do minorities do more drugs than white people? No, they all do just as much drugs. They just do different drugs.
Right.
So why do the black people? So why do the black people get arrested and the white people don't?
Okay, so one explanation is systemic racism. Mm-hmm. But I'm asking you to, as a skeptic, to think of an alternative explanation. I can think of one.
What?
Well, I don't want to just give it. I want you to think about it and see if you can come up with it on your own.
So
yeah, I can think of 2.
Yeah, either it's systemic racism or racism, just personal.
Could there be an explanation that has nothing to do with race?
About why people of color are disproportionately jailed?
Yeah. Someone in your chat, I'm reading your chat as we're going, someone actually even said it. And that's poverty. So for example, let's say...
But that's the systemic piece of it. Right, like that.
But it's not racism, though. It's
it is. It is. Have you heard of redlining? Do you know how hard it was, how impossible it was for people of color to get any kind of loans from banks up until very recently? That there are people who are still alive who like that. That is incredibly recent.
Right, but Eric, we're talking about, let's say in 2024, there's 2 people driving on the road. One's black, one's white, and they both have done, let's say, an illegal drug, and they're driving. But you don't know who is in what car. But because one car is, let's say, older, it's spewing black smoke and it has a tail light out. The other car is newer and everything looks fine. The police officer is going to pull over
the poor person.
That vehicle, the vehicle with it. They don't even know they're poor, but you can make that assumption, I guess.
Yeah,
because the car is older and has a tail light out. So that would be an explanation of why maybe African Americans are pulled over more and charged with certain crimes like drug.
Well, honestly, I was going to say, you honestly see a lot of people, and I'm not trying to talk over you to tell you you're wrong. I'm just also joining in here that you see that in Appalachia, really badly, places where there are a large population of very, very poor folks. They fucking hate the cops.
So is this systemic racism against the white people in Appalachia?
No, it's not. It is systemic though, and it absolutely is that it's easier for cops to pick on poor people.
So maybe the issue is not the color of the skin, but the class the person's in. Like
You
poor or
know,
rich or...
I could see, I can absolutely see classism playing a role there, sure. But I don't think those things are at odds. I think we live in a gray world with a lot of things that contribute.
Okay. Well, can we switch topics? Because I really love the call you had with Summer.
Sure.
And my question to you is like, I'm listening to that and I'm feeling for her. I'm a pretty dead inside type of guy, but I actually felt for her because a part of me just wanted you to say, I don't know if she used to be a Christian, but part of me wanted you to say, go back to Christianity.
Well, so here's the reason why. Have you heard of the great? I'm sorry, the noble lie.
The noble lie, yeah, like a. Well, I don't know if you're talking about something specific, but in general, the placebo effect of if religion can be false but have good outcomes, it's utilitarian to believe it. Not
quite, but that's a good guess. So the noble lie goes back to Socrates, I believe. Either Socrates or I think it was Socrates. But what he lived in a caste system, right? You were not going to
Plato's Republic.
Plato, okay, and Plato wrote about Socrates. So either then it was Socrates. Okay, thank you. Essentially, the idea is, oh, hey, we should tell the population that they have different cores in their souls, in their being, of different types of metal. You can have in your core, copper or gold or silver or whatever the case is, and it's going to influence where you are in society, right? And the people who have essentially, it was a lie to protect the hierarchy. People won't be restless and fight against, their rulers if they think that they were put on this earth to be subjects. Does that make sense?
I'm not sure what this has to do with Summer.
Sure. No, I'll get there. The response to that is that you shouldn't have to lie to people. And you should not assume that people are stupid so that you need to tell them a lie to make things simpler for them.
I understand that.
Yeah.
And I agree. However,
I feel like it's deeply condescending of me if I were to say that, because that would be me assuming that Summer can't handle it.
Well, you know what, Eric? I'm going to tell you a hard truth. I say a lot of people, if not most people, can't handle atheism.
And Doug, I think that is incredibly condescending, and I feel, and that's me saying that.
I think it's the truth.
Yeah, I don't. And the thing is, just as a rule, I refuse to say that about other people. I feel like it cuts them off without ever giving them the chance to become the best versions of themselves.
Well, again, they always have the chance and they have their own choices to make. But I think there's a reason why we evolved. Like, I'm an atheist, I'm a naturalist like you are, right? You're a naturalist?
Yeah, methodological, yeah.
Yeah, me too. I think just look at the data. The vast majority of people on this planet believe in some type of higher power. And I think we evolved that way for a reason, to help our survival. I think you and I are freaks of nature.
I mean, I'm not going to disagree with you on that one. But at the same time, I think that we're creating a really major error when we're appealing to natural, like, evolution and social stuff. Evolution does not have that exact social impact. That kind of thinking takes you to eugenics. It really, really does. Have you heard of social Darwinism?
Yeah.
It's the same line of thinking that I just won't follow down that path. I think that people have been religious for a very long time. Awesome. Do I think that it is a piece of our evolution? I don't necessarily think so. I do think that people love to tell stories. And I do think that people abhor. Is that how you say it? Abhor or abhor?
I say abhor.
People abhor a vacuum. They need to fill it with something.
Yeah.
If your partner comes home and you say, "How was your day?" and they go, "Fine," and they just walk away, you're like, what happened? You don't just get a text that says we need to talk and don't have a fucking panic attack. Like, you need to know, right? We fill that shit in. And so if we don't know what's going on around us, we'll create stories. And
right. But that fantasy is always better than reality. And that's like, this is why we dream. This is why we like Summer. She said it perfectly. Like she even used the word, I think, fantasy. And I think people need that. Like here's an anecdotal testimony, I guess. And you're the type of guy I think would appreciate it. I was a Christian for about 35 years, depending on the start date, and then I've been an atheist now for a dozen years, and I'm a hard atheist. And I've seen Christians who are really in pain because of the cognitive dissonance, but I would say that's the minority. I would say, sure, they struggle, they have problems, but I would say as a percentage, Christians are happier than atheists.
I don't know. I think that
I'm just saying from my personal experience, that's been the case.
I think that we need to take into account the fact that in the United States, at least, most people are raised in Christian environments. And so not being a Christian comes from a lot of like thinking about it and going through that. And so I feel like that really influences that. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just have a different reason for that.
I agree. It might be different in different countries.
Yeah. And so I will always pick a hard truth over a useful lie. And I feel like it's condescending to make that choice for other people.
And I agree with you, but this is what makes us freaks, Eric. Most people are not like us.
And most people, no one but me is going to deal with me being able to sleep at night. I need to sleep at night. I need to be consistent with the person that I am. And I refuse to condescend. I refuse to.
Don't view it as a condescension. Like, what if I told you I had a crystal ball, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And I spent years doing anti-apologetics. I'm kind of off that now. But let's say you and I were together and there's a Christian and we start kind of disabusing this Christian of their beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
But then I pull a crystal ball out of my pocket and I say, hey, if we continue on this path, Eric, in 5 years, this person's going to be a total mess, a psychological meltdown, anxieties, depression, and maybe even a high risk of suicide. But if we leave this person alone, they will continue to believe what, in our opinion, is a lie. You know, Christianity could still be true.
Sure.
I'm sure you're willing to admit that.
Yeah.
So you don't have to view it as a lie. Just view it as a high probability of being false. And so anyhow, but we have this crystal ball. Mm-hmm. Would you continue down the path of disabusing this person of Christianity, or would you say, you know what, I'm going to back off?
So it totally depends on consent. If the person wants to have those conversations and is able to and like is going, hey, let's talk about this with an open mind, then that's okay. We're going to have the conversation.
But in this hypothetical, you have consent,
mm-hmm.
but you also know that by continuing on, you're going to do harm.
You're asking me to take on the parental role of another adult.
No, I'm asking you to back off and leave the person alone.
Because I know what's better for them.
Well, you do in this hypothetical because you have a crystal ball.
Okay, and I get that. I'm not going to miss the forest for the trees here. I get what you're saying. If I somehow knew the future and knew that the impact was, going to treat them poorly, I want to have autonomy. And autonomy for me is having the best information I have to make the decisions that I'm making for myself. And if I fuck my life up, I at least want it to be because that is what I chose and not because someone else made that decision for me. I would be resentful to the end of my days if someone made that decision for me. And I will accept when I fuck up and, but those are consequences as long as it's a consequence of my own actions, my own choices. I'm not going to take the choice away from other people.
Well, you're not. You're just not actively trying to change their mind. That's all I'm saying.
But if they want to have their mind changed, we live in a system. They can go to someone else. Should I then try and block them from talking to other atheists?
No. I'm talking about what you have in your control, and I would think that if you value things like doing no harm to people, and by someone leaving Christianity, it ends up harming them more than helping them. I think as a secular humanist, you would say you shouldn't make the choice to try to disabuse them of Christianity.
No, I don't. And I feel like that gets into like abusive relationships. Do you know how many people stay with abusive partners because they're afraid that their partner will kill them if they leave?
Yeah.
And that's not an empty threat. Like a lot of people will kill themselves and their significant other if they, get broken up with. Like that is a legitimate fear when it comes to, that's definitely a privilege that you and I have that, we, we experience that less, than women. But like Doug, am I going to advise that person to stay in the abusive relationship because they might get hurt by their partner?
No, of course not.
Why?
But do you actually think that Christianity is abusive, like a domestic partner hitting
Absolutely.
a spouse?
Absolutely.
Really?
Oh yeah. No,
surely you don't mean all forms of Christianity. You're just thinking of the worst types.
Well, not even the worst, just what was common when I was growing up. Like I have my experience that informs my opinion. I'm not saying all religions, but what I am saying is like living in an environment where you need to tell on your neighbors if you think that they're doing bad, when you accuse people of thought crimes, when you ostracize people from their own bodies and indoctrinate them with shame, when you force women into subservient roles to the point that they no longer get to make decisions about their body or what they want to do with their lives, if you ostracize folks and kick them out of their community if they don't do exactly what you say when you say it, like there are so many pieces in there that you only find in deeply abusive narcissistic relationships.
I understand, but I understand that some of this is formed from your own experience.
Yeah.
But I'm sure if you look back at your Christian life, and I haven't heard your story, but I'll say for me, I look back and I have more positive memories than negative. And I'm still an atheist today, and I have no desire to go back to Christianity. But I mean, the community was so rich and full in the music. I heard you talking about the arts, and I appreciate the arts, even though I'm a finance guy. Like the music, I was taught in church how to sing 4-part harmony, and it's just beautiful.
I love that you had that experience, and I don't want to take that away from you. So I think we can probably, though, exercise some empathy and recognize that we both have experiences that painted our view of things. You can probably, at least from what I said, draw some conclusions about why I think the way that I think about it. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I think you were hurt.
Well, I don't think I was hurt as much as I lived in an environment where everyone was hurt. And then they were taught to push that hurt on their children. And then their children grew up and they pushed that hurt onto them.
Well, I know that happens, but I also know that religion, and we don't even have to talk about Christianity,
Yeah,
religion in general has brought fruits to a lot of people.
So, Doug, I know we've been talking for about a half hour already. I do have other callers.
Time flies.
I know, doesn't it? So here's the thing. I encourage you to read the comments, because when it comes to race and racism, like I told you at the beginning of that, I feel underqualified. And there are lots of really great points that people were making that in the moment on a live show, I just flew past me, and all I'm going to do is kick my own ass when I read all of the things that I could have said and should have said. So like, I don't feel like I'm the right person for that conversation, because I don't feel like I don't got the lines, man. You know, but when we want to, if you want to talk about religion,
okay, Eric, you don't have to. Like if people know you're not an expert on everything, and I'm not an expert in everything, but it's just two guys talking.
Yes, and if people are watching because they're making up their minds about things, I want them to have good resources. And if I'm not representing a good resource, then I want to, instead of me just talking out of my ass, I want to tell them, find a good resource. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I respect, because that's part of me respecting their time. So, Doug, I encourage you to call again. Maybe we can pick this up another time. I'd be happy to. Let's keep it on the religion and philosophy, though, because I feel like I'm going to be much better about, bouncing that stuff back towards you. And thank you for calling in. Was this the kind of call that you thought it would be?
Yeah, I thought it would go well, and I think it did go well. Do you think it went well?
I feel like I really biffed it in talking about racism and societal stuff. And I think part of it is religion used to get my heart going and used to frustrate me, and I would get flustered and I would lose my words or my thoughts. And so I've kind of moved through that. I don't think I've done that when it comes to systemic issues about race and society. I think I still get angry and flustered. My heart gets, palpitates, and I lose my words. And because of that, yeah, I think I biffed that. But other than that, I think it was a good call.
Yeah, and Eric, I want you to know I'm being very sincere. I like you. I like talking to you. We are opposite personality types, and we probably are opposite in so many different ways. But I think you and I could potentially have productive conversations in the future.
Even if it's not productive personally, I could see those future discussions being productive for the people watching. So call back, and we'll pick up where we left off, okay?
Okay, thanks for having me.
Take care, Doug. I know this is a live show. I never know who's calling in or about what. And there are times when I could do really, really well with something, even that I'm really familiar with. And in that moment, all I can ask for is some empathy from people watching that, yeah. But anyway, oh my gosh, we have some really good callers. I do have a religious person on the line. I love that, and I want to give that priority. So let's talk to Brandon in Arizona. Give me just a sec to get Doug off here. Brandon, are you there?
I am. How are you?
Hey, I think I'm doing okay. How about you?
I'm good. So it's been a little while since we've chatted. I don't know if you remember talking to me a few times on the show.
So your voice sounds so familiar, but I don't remember the context. And I always feel bad, but I'm happy that you called. It says you want to talk about the resurrection of Jesus as a historical fact. Why don't you set the stage for this?
Yeah, just that's the one thing that where everybody really needs to just kind of push all of the religious nonsense to the side and just examine the claims of Jesus, and then just consider, if the resurrection actually occurred, if this is an actual historical fact, then this proves all of his claims were absolutely true. And that's where, that's, my heart goes out to people because, I don't think they realize the risk, because, Jesus is offering eternal life and most people just don't care.
So,
you know what I mean? And that's where,
well, I feel like there are a lot of pieces there. And
sure.
I don't even know where to start, Brandon. So let me start by saying that I feel like that statement is essentially saying, well, if I'm right, then I'm right. Right? Like,
well, it's not about, it's not me being right.
Well, no, but if the statement I'm saying is correct, then it is correct. It feels kind of like a tautology, but it's not, and I'll kind of break down why. So I've got one. Do you ever watch superhero movies?
Occasionally.
Comic books, any of those? Those people with superpowers, maybe some of them can fire lightning or whatever, have super healing.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if one of them had the ability to resurrect, does that mean that they had the ability to do anything?
Sure, but I mean, we're talking about fiction when it comes to, comic books and superheroes and all of that.
And I'm talking about fiction when I talk about the Bible.
Well, I mean, I know you have some issues just because, you were brought up in a religious background. And then I think, if you, I don't know what exact religion, or what denomination you were brought up in.
Born again Christian.
So, sure. So, but I mean, as far as, there's still a lot of denominations. I mean, many people I, talk to that claim to be Christian, you know what I mean? As soon as you, kind of get into some, sorry.
No, that's okay. I get excited and I want to jump in and add to it. I'm not trying to smash you down as much as help direct things a bit. Even if I grant that there are different denominations, let's agree that believing in the resurrection of Jesus is a pretty core tenet of Christianity, and all denominations are going to give you that. Even the non-Trinitarian ones.
Sure.
Right? Even though even the Mormons and even Muslims believe that Jesus resurrected. So let's talk about that. What would it take for you to believe that someone resurrected today? Like if I told you, hey, before the show, I was dead for a week. I started to stink, and then I just got up and I was fine.
I would have a hard time. I'd have a hard time believing it. Just
what
because,
but what if I told you for the last 3 years I've been walking around healing the blind and casting demons out of folks? Would you be more likely to believe that I resurrected today?
Well, if I actually maybe witnessed it, and
but you didn't.
That, you know what I mean? But I didn't.
You didn't, but I have writing from someone who did.
Well, I think if in the situation of like the apostles and all of that, if you were, if you were somebody was threatening you with death. And if it's gonna call your bluff if you're not telling the truth. You know what I mean?
No, not really.
I don't think anybody's willing to die for a lie.
I've heard the die for a lie, and people die for lies all the time. Do you think that the Muslim faith is true?
Well, but
hold on.
Dying.
Yeah, they are. So 9/11, the anniversary of 9/11 was 4 days ago. If you don't think that the Muslim faith is correct, then I'm assuming you think that they died for a lie.
Well, from my point of view, but they believed wholeheartedly.
Do you think that?
They didn't believe it to be a lie. They didn't. You know what I'm saying?
Do you think that they
believe that to be the truth? Yeah.
And according to you, I'm assuming you think that they believed that in error, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, so what's to stop me from saying that the apostles, I am saying if because I don't think the apostles actually wrote the books, but we can get there. But first,
Sure.
even if I were just to assume that the apostles did write the books, just for the sake of argument, couldn't I say that they were convinced, but, wrongly convinced?
They were wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, you can say that, sure. So, but I mean, here's the other factors though
Yeah.
to back up Jesus' claims.
Before we get to the other factors, I just want to make sure that we addressed the ones that we talked about, or else I'm going to feel like they're left open-ended. So the die for a lie
Sure.
point that you brought up, right? Why would someone die for something that wasn't true? I responded
They knew was a lie, though. That's what I mean.
that they knew was a lie. I don't think that's the case. I have no problem thinking that the apostles believed that Jesus was God or the Son of God or whatever the case is. Like, no problem with that. I'm saying that people could be very, very convinced to the point of giving their lives over to a thing and also be wrong. So I responded to the die for a lie thing, I believe. Right?
Sure.
And I feel like I responded to your statement saying that if Jesus resurrected, then Jesus did all of the other things. I responded to that by saying, what if Jesus actually did resurrect? That is not evidence that Jesus was able to do anything else. So that was my response to that, right? I have now answered those things with enough to go, hey, here's another possible conclusion that shows that you can't logically make the argument you just made in those two things, right?
Agreed.
You can have lots of reasons and you can still be
yeah.
convinced, but maybe the two that we just talked about aren't as strong as you think. Okay, let's move on to the next thing.
Sure. Yeah. So and here's the other, the other proofs to prove that Jesus wasn't just some, wackadoo claiming to be God. This is where you have all of the prophecies, all of the Old Testament prophecies, and we know the Septuagint translated all the Old Testament, scriptures into Greek 200 years before Jesus was even born. So we know all of the Old Testament is at least 200 years before Jesus was even born. So, and this is where, that's where God even said, I'm going to prove that I am God, with prophecy. That's one of the proofs that he told us he's going to provide us. And that's when, Jesus comes in and fulfills, over 300 prophecies. So, to prove his claim so that he's not just another religious weirdo claiming to be God.
I mean,
then he, of course, performed. Sorry.
No, that's okay. I was going to say something snarky, and I realized that's not useful for the conversation. Go ahead.
No, I enjoy your snarkiness sometimes. But anyhow, but yeah, no, it's that's the he fulfills all of these prophecies. He's performing miracles. All of the Jewish people knew. Like even, Nicodemus says, we know that you're from God. Nobody could perform these kind of miracles unless God be with them.
Well, if we're talking about that, then I'm sure contemporaries at the time would have written about it. You would get something from, let's say, Pliny the Younger, or from Flavius Josephus, right, who was tasked with managing the time at that time, right, the land at that time. But you don't see that. So the statement everyone saw and knew is not true. But let's talk about the bigger elephant in the room, prophecy, right? I think that we have, there's some homework that I want to give you, okay? So we're just going to talk about Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. We're not going to talk about the writings of Paul because you know that Paul didn't come around until much later, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, he never actually met Jesus. Jesus was already dead. He has the kind of miraculous road to Damascus thing, but like, he wasn't an apostle that followed Jesus through Jerusalem or whatever, right? Like, that was not Paul.
Well, Paul did write, though, that, he did spend 3 years with Jesus, like Jesus would come to him.
As a ghost.
They would literally spend time together.
Yeah,
Well, I guess you could say as a ghost
yeah. I mean,
in spirit form, or
however you want to. I'm not gonna like nitpicky on the, but if we're gonna be talking about like real
that's
people who
one
are
of the
alive,
Yeah, that's
yeah,
one of the qualifications of being an apostle. That's why any idiot that comes along today claiming they're an apostle, you already know he's a fraud, because by the by the standards of Scripture, you don't qualify, my friend.
well,
So that's why you already know they're a total fraud.
I mean, that's something that you can say to another Christian and go, elbow each other and go, see what I'm saying? That has no bearing on me, man. Like, I don't,
understand.
yeah, I'm not weighing things by your yardstick here. But let's get to the,
just to say one thing, as far
well,
as I mean, that's what drives me nuts about all of the false Christianity, is that it turns people off like you, that are very logical and rational, and you look at all of this religious nonsense, and it turns you off from what happens to actually be the truth.
or
So that's what breaks my heart about all of this fake religiosity crap.
well, then ask me. I will be honest with you. I promise. Instead of assuming that that's what turns me off, you can ask me, because that's not what it is. You're making an assumption, and I understand why you are. You have an idea of what makes atheists atheists, but that's not the case for me. So
we've had a lot of we've had a few conversations before. That's why, I mean,
sure.
I think I can safely make that assumption.
Honestly,
based on some of our prior conversations.
Honestly, bad experiences in the church, if the religion was still true, would not push me away from the church. That's a bad reason to leave a religion. So I disagree with that. But regardless, do you believe that the apostles wrote the books, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John?
I do. They wrote the original signatures, and then everybody made copies and copies and copies.
Okay, that is historically untrue, and that is untrue even to like leading Christian like theologians and archaeologists, historians. I highly encourage you to look into it, because here's my understanding of it. No, it's okay. Here's my understanding of it. John was written much later than Matthew, Mark, and Luke.
Okay. I've heard that argument.
I believe that, if I get this wrong, I apologize, and you can call me and hold my feet to the fire, okay, Brandon? I believe that Mark and Luke were written first. And then
it's claimed that Mark was first, yes.
Right. And then another book was written, but that other book has been lost to time. But and historians, Christian historians, call that source Q. And that when Matthew was written, that it was borrowed from Mark and Luke and Q, because you can see things being copied whole cloth, right? And over time, as new versions of the story happened, Jesus became more and more miraculous. The character of Jesus changes through those books. The earliest recordings of the Jesus story don't include Jesus coming back in spirit form. Jesus is not bodily ascended to the heavens in the earliest versions. In fact, in the earlier versions, Jesus is much more human. Jesus says, "Take this cup from my hands. I cannot do it." He pleads and cries, and he's very, very upset at the idea that he's going to be crucified. Right? But what does he do in the later versions?
Sure.
In the later versions, he's a friggin' hero. In the later versions, he tells he says to the the convicts, "I will see you in heaven." He forgives his. He says, "Lord, they know not what they do." Right, this grand sacrifice. Jesus became much more of a superhero badass over time. I think that has everything to do with mythological figures. Over time, fish stories get bigger. and that's
no,
fine. But if we were to
that
also,
sounds a lot like Martyr. It's how Jesus became God.
yeah, I haven't read that, but I'm sure. But also
Yeah.
but also Brandon, that you've probably heard all of this then. But the other piece with Jesus is, if we know that these things were written after the fact, then the ideas of the prophecies that you brought up are not fantastic anymore, because those authors
I get your
can,
point.
right, like if you can just backfill them. you you can just fill those in. And you can also look at the books in the order they were written, and the older those books get, further away from the event of crucifixion, the more prophecies Jesus fulfills.
Well, have you by any chance ever heard of J. Warner Wallace?
I
The guy
have,
that did
absolutely.
Cold Case Christianity?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I mean, he makes some pretty strong points, and when I mean, and he does everything like in a totally legal type evidence. What can be submitted as that considered evidence and what can't. And anyhow, he makes a. Sorry.
No, that's okay. Lee Warner Wallace, along with like Lee Strobel, The Case for Christ. I've just not found their arguments convincing in the slightest, and I don't think they should be convincing for you.
Yeah. Well, I'm saying, one argument that J. Warner Wallace brings up is that we know that all of the early writings, all of the Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and all of that, and were definitely written before 70 AD, because like the destruction of Jerusalem and the temple and everything in 70 AD. I mean, this is like a 9/11 event, and why did none of the Gospels ever mention this huge devastating event to the Jewish people? That's never mentioned. So I mean, it's pretty strong evidence that all of the Gospels were definitely written before 70 AD. So I think a lot of the so-called scholars nowadays get the dates of each of these Gospels being written. I think they're way off, and it discredits
So no, that's okay. So biblical historians, the way that they date these books is they take a look at things like prophecies, and they try and look for anachronisms, right? Like, I don't know, if I were to pull out a book from 1910 and somebody, in it, it says somebody yeeted a football, that's an anachronism, right? It's something out of time. That's modern language, right?
Sure.
So there are markers that biblical historians will use to date these books, and they date much older. They do have information and context that were true later on, and they get earlier stuff wrong. That's how we're able to kind of date those things. What I would recommend is I helped Holy Kool-Aid with a video a while back. He interviewed, have you heard of Religion for Breakfast? I believe is what it's called.
Yeah, I have. I've actually watched quite a few of Holy Kool-Aid's videos. Like, I like the guy. You know what I mean? We obviously disagree. So, I mean, I'd love an opportunity to chat with them sometime, because I think that,
yeah.
I mean, this is where, I have a genuine concern for people, because, I mean, if Jesus was telling the truth, then there really is a place called hell. This is all, this is all for real.
You keep saying things that I want to spend an hour talking about, Brandon. It's not fair. Okay? No, it's okay. So I feel like I've read Cold Case Christianity. I've watched and read The Case for Christ. If you have not watched Unearthing the True Origins of the Bible on Holy Kool-Aid's channel, I recommend you do. It's something that I worked on that I feel like addresses a lot of these things. And I'd be interested in finding out what your responses are to those.
What's the name of the video? Sorry?
Unearthing the True Origins of the Bible. It is an interview that Holy Kool-Aid did with Religion for Breakfast.
Yeah, I'll definitely check it out.
Sounds good. Brandon?
So anyways, but yes, I like listening to your guys' objections.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I just think that I think if you guys did a little more honest digging, and and this is where I have a lot of problems with all of the different Bible versions, and this is where I encourage people to study the Reformation movement, then the Catholic Church's counter Reformation movement, and where all of these why all of these other versions of Bibles pop up, and why I believe that the King James Bible is really the only true, truly preserved Word of God. So that, sorry.
No, that's okay. You keep saying things that I want to respond to, is all, Brandon. Why don't we talk about that in the next time you call, about biblical inerrancy, because I think that'd be an interesting conversation to have. I do want to push back though, or else I'm going to kick my butt after this call. That if I don't come to the same conclusion as you, does that mean that I didn't do an honest investigation?
No, not no. I'm not saying that. But as far as I'm just saying, you guys already kind of do have some bias. Like Holy Kool-Aid definitely has some bias, and I believe that if you guys are in some type of denomination that like I would consider false. You know what I mean? That they have major doctrinal errors. Then if you reach this point of disillusionment, then I mean it's I can understand your position and why you're like I'm just not into this religious nonsense.
Well, how about
I understand how that.
Why don't you call again next week, and we'll see if you can help disabuse me of my incorrect notions. Okay?
Yeah, I'd love to.
All right. Hey, Brandon.
Because I genuinely. What happened to V? What happened? How come she's no longer on the show?
They.
It's been a little while since I tuned in. They. Sorry.
All good. They're good. They're sleeping upstairs. They're working crazy hours, and they're getting really involved in other community stuff. They just needed to make a decision about what they were going to put their time into, and they're like, you know what, I love you, Eric, I support you, and all of that. But they're just kind of doing their own thing. But we're still happy. We're in love. We live together. We're in Oregon, and So, but they're doing good. They always smile when people ask.
All right. What do you mean they are? So, but is that like her pronoun or something?
They, them is V's pronouns, yeah.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah. Hey.
All right. I was getting confused. I was like, what?
No worries, Brandon. Thank you for calling in. Take care of yourself.
Yeah, you have a good day, man.
You too. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Okay. So I am running over time. Let me pick up really quick. Let me grab Aethiopagan. Aethiopagan!
Yes.
Hey, you wanted to talk about possible show topics and what we want to what we could possibly do in the future.
Yeah, and you got to go and help your friends, so I want to make it quick.
So real quick. Sorry.
Yeah, so I wanted to try to throw that at you. It was like, well, it depends on what you want to do. Like, do you you had 2 or 3 contentious talks today, and I mean, the first one was about race, and then about crime, and then I forget what the last thing you guys talked about was. Did you enjoy that conversation? Is that something you want to continue to do? Or do you more enjoy when the last caller where you have a contentious thing, but it's like it's going back to old base because you've been doing those conversations for a long time.
Before I answer that, I just want to say that Stephen, who was waiting for an hour and a half, dropped out, and I feel awful. So Stephen, please call again next week. I sincerely appreciate you calling and waiting for that long, and I'd love to talk to you next week. Okay, so responding to you, Ethiopagan. A mix of things, honestly. I don't like being out of my depth, right? Because I feel like I'm talking out of my ass, and I don't want to make stuff up. And so I'm not a therapist, and I don't want people to treat me like I'm going to solve their personal life problems, because that feels like I'm inserting myself in their lives in a really unhealthy way. And so I do my best to help, but not replace, talking to a professional. So there's that.
Makes sense. As a social worker, like even as a social worker myself, there's places in my life where I refuse to do my quote unquote social work. Like when family comes to me and they're like, hey, why don't you help my little cousin with blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no, I'm not doing social work for family members. I can give them resources, but I am not going to give those resources.
Right. No, exactly. And so I try to weigh that. When it comes to talking to religious folks about what they believe and why, I love having those conversations. I'm really comfortable with them. And I feel like I'm not seeing represented enough the approach that I have.
You are correct.
And so I feel like I have value to add to the way these conversations are had. And so I want to keep having them. So yes, and yes, and yes. It's kind of tough, isn't it? It's kind of the nature of the call-in show, which I guess helps is I don't know who's going to call in next, but I'm going to do my best to address it. I'm up for all of them. When it comes to me picking topics for the shows, though, which is kind of at the core of it, where do I want to take the show? It's a mix, right? The next time the algorithm decides to pick up the show, it's going to sprout out again. And I'm going to kind of follow where that leads. And in the meantime, I'm trying to pick topics that I can, get viewers to call in about, because I'm not going to assume that somebody's frothing at the mouth, angry, ready to call in and tell me I'm wrong. Right. So
the other thing I want to point out though is like, if depending on where you go, it can also cause trouble. So like, for example, as the most right-wing leftist political ideology, like there are things that I definitely, back off on when I'm hearing my quote unquote comrades more to the left of me have discussions about stuff. And, there are points in time where I have to kind of mute myself. Yeah, I don't agree with them, but hey, you're still my comrades and I need to work with you for a better future for America and the world. So like, for example, if somebody wanted to call in and talk about Palestine and Israel, or if I for myself, I'm like a NATO simp. I love NATO.
I've never heard someone call themselves a simp before, and that makes me laugh. But go ahead.
Yeah. So that's a topic that I get into big discussions about, and they get contentious arguments with other leftists about.
Sure.
But there are some topics that I wonder if that would actually make you not want the contentiousness of a lot of these discussions. It's the nuances that can cause the most rage and the most angry. For example, if you talk about the Israel-Palestine thing, whenever I hear someone say "river to the sea," I cringe a little bit. Because I like, for example, I feel like that's not what I want to see either, because that's if Israel were to be completely wiped out, what that would mean for the several million people that live there. But those are the kind of talks that I have to be very careful about because it's very easy for someone to take what I just said and go, oh, so you're pro-Israel, you're pro-Palestine, or pro-genocide. I'm like, no, that's not what I'm saying. I just don't know if I want to see the dissolution of Israel because I don't know what's going to happen to the 3 million people that live there.
I mean, but if you could wave a magic wand and create a two-state solution, wouldn't
definitely.
Wouldn't that be another option? Like supporting, being against the level of military violence that Israel has been funneling towards Palestine. Like, you can be against the tactics and not against the country. You can you can be for a sharing of land without the disillusion of one group or the other, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I'm a pro two-state solution. I'm very much on the side of Palestine getting the country that they not only deserve, but I think is rightfully theirs. But if I'm talking to other leftists, and I have gone to pro-Palestine demonstrations, seeing like it's very rare. I'm not saying this is the majority, but I see people who are like pro-Hamas. I see people who are, wipe out Israel from the face of the map, and those are the type of things that I worry about when I'm marching along people. Even during the Trump era, when I was marching with Antifa, I am 100% of the knowledge that there are some people there that would put me, quote unquote, up against the wall as much as the people that we're marching against. So it's a rough space to be in when you're navigating these topics.
Sure. No, I absolutely agree. And not nailing the nuances on a live call-in show is gonna happen. Yep. And I'm gonna get roasted. And so I definitely, even if I have strong opinions, I tend to avoid those on these shows just because I've gotten simple shit wrong. And so it's I tend to avoid that kind of stuff. Even though I do have strong opinions, it's just you gotta pick your battles,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's just something you gotta kind of like because you do topics at the beginning of the show and you have a little monologue about them. But I understand you don't want to do the same old, things that other shows do, where it's like, oh, how do atheists deal with death? Oh, how do, atheists do this? Oh, how to blah, blah, blah. Because everyone's done them. So you want to find other topics to delve into. And that can be a hard thing sometimes because a lot of people, real quick, last time, a lot of people view this as just an atheist show. And I know that's not what you want. So, that's something you have to think about.
Yeah. Honestly, when people ask me what kind of show I do, I say philosophy and theology, and we talk about it in a more empathetic way that also holds people's feet to the fire. Being empathetic doesn't mean that I sit and nod my head and go, "Oh, you're right about everything." No, if someone is bonkers, I'm gonna point it out. But I guess I'm still figuring it out. But I do appreciate the question. I think that the answer to it is something I'm still searching for. But in the meantime, I want to have these conversations, and so I'm trying to seed the show with conversation starters. It doesn't all need to be about that topic, but if we can have something, a launching point, at least it can help.
Yeah, and unfortunately, with the call-in show that you have, you're gonna have. I mean, especially if it does come off the ground, if you do get very popular, you're gonna get a lot more calls from people with differing opinions that you're not going to know about, and the engagement, and that's the engagement that you're going to have to decide. Okay, am I willing to talk about it and not know everything? And
so, depending, if it is a topic that people are actively being like the recipients of violence for, then red flags all over the place. But if somebody thinks that the Earth is flat, I'm not going to be like, oh, I'm a physicist, or
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
I don't think I need to be a physicist to talk about that. And even if I don't, sometimes when you get that level of delusion, it's just fun for people to, it's the same reason I watch superhero movies, right? Fantasy. Like, I don't care about Harry Potter. I don't care. But like, get me in the world a little bit. If you think that like lizard people rule the government, I want to talk to you about like city council meetings.
Yeah, that's my personal favorite conspiracy theory, by the way, the lizard people.
Oh, absolutely. So like, I don't know. But I feel like I'm kind of just doing the thing I always do with you, Atheopagan, which is just shooting the shit with a friend. I know I've gone over, but I really appreciate you calling in.
Of course.
Thank you.
Anytime, Eric. And you have my Discord if you ever need to shoot some ideas or shoot some shit at me.
I appreciate it. And if you get any ideas about topics I could seed shows for, shoot me a message.
Will do.
All right. Take care, brother.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye. I didn't even put Atheopagan's name up in the bottom third. I feel terrible. All right, so I'm still trying to learn the rules around Twitch, because this show has been live streaming on Twitch the entire time. If you go to twitch.tv/Skeptic Generation, you will find it. But as a rule, I always read the super chats, and I hope that's still okay now that it's on Twitch. I want to do that really quick. EO Man's Code says, Happy Sunday, Eric. I got on Discord a little late last week because I don't really have the app. I'll be down in Portland next weekend. Sent you a friend request on Discord. I'll take a look on Discord. Thank you for the super chat. My unfinished journey sent $6.66. Thank you. It says, hail Nero, hail Eric, and hail constructive dialogue. Thank you, my unfinished journey. I really appreciate it. I know that we've run long. I'm not going to be doing an after show because I'm going to be working on a video for a friend's channel. I'll talk about it more next week. I have been doing streams midweek on Twitch, other than the Skeptic Generation channel. If you go to Eric the Heathen, I've just been playing video games. I'd love for you to come and hang out with me and just chill if that's something that you want to do. And with that said, oh, geez. Hey, if you're watching, have you hit the like button? Like this video, subscribe, ring the notification bell. It probably still won't say when I'm going live, but it's worth a try. And if you want to support the show, consider going to patreon.com/Skeptic Generation. That's patreon.com/Skeptic Generation. Every little bit helps. The show takes quite a bit to fund all the stuff. And yeah, it's sincerely appreciated. But with that said, I think it's time to go. I'm Eric Murphy. And I'm glad we had this talk. I'll see you next week.